All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for Norcal APEX Accelerator's introductory webinar, How to Do Business with the Government. My name is Amanda Anderson. I'm the program coordinator for Norcal APEX Accelerator, and today's presentation will be done by James Forrest, one of our awesome procurement specialists. But before I pass it over to him, I do want to let you know a little bit about how APEX Accelerators, as well as Norcal APEX Accelerator, can help you with government contracting. So the APEX Accelerator program is a federally funded nonprofit network with over 96 centers across the US that have the sole purpose of helping businesses, whether they're big or small, contract with the government. And we offer all of our resources at absolutely no cost because we are funded by the government. We are here to help you. And that makes it so much easier to get connected and get the assistance you need because there's no payment, there's no charge, there's no risk involved with connecting with your APEX Accelerator. Whether you're in California and maybe want to connect with the 7 or 8 that we have in the state, or if you're all the way out in New York or Georgia or Florida, there's an APEX Accelerator near you that can help with your government contracting. But as for Norcal APEX Accelerator, we want to go to the next slide. Norcal APEX Accelerator services the Northern California coastal counties, as you see on our map. And we offer our no-cost government contracting assistance through 3 main pillars. Our main one is our one-on-one counseling. Now, you sign up with us, you become a client, and what that means is that you get connected with a procurement specialist. Maybe you get connected with James or one of the other 9 or 10 counselors that we have on staff. And you're able to schedule appointments at your leisure. So when you need help, preferably well before you need help, and you're able to meet with your procurement specialist over Zoom, or if you're in Humboldt County, we do have an in-person office option. And you're able to work through all of the hiccups and hurdles of government contracting with a procurement specialist that is knowledgeable and experienced in these registrations, in the certifications, in looking over proposals and helping with contract compliance after you win your first one. So one-on-one counseling is an absolute must. But once you are signed up with one-on-one counseling, you're able to take advantage of our second pillar, our custom bid matching program. Now, what this is essentially an account you set up with your counselor, and they'll help you pick out keywords, industry terms, locations, and set up an account for you for this software. Now, what this software does is it scrubs all of the procurement sites, local, state, federal. There's so many different ones. It can be hard to find the opportunities, but this software scours all of those and will email you opportunities relevant to you based on that criteria that you set with your counselor, and it'll email it directly to your inbox. So if you're looking to perform work in a certain location, this service will send you opportunities to contract within that location. If you have a very specific niche of product or service, this service will help you filter out anything that you may not perform on, you may not be able to serve or produce, and get you all of those relevant solicitations, those relevant opportunities directly to your inbox. I know we have some clients that get emails daily, some clients get like an email a week. So it really depends on what opportunities are out there, but the fact that you'll have opportunities going directly to you takes the work and time off of you to go find them. And our third pillar of assistance is all of our resources and trainings, which you're actually taking advantage of today through this webinar. Along with this introductory webinar, we do a ton of other trainings and webinars throughout the entire year. We do about 3 or 4 a month on average, and it can range from anything to how to develop your capability statement to how to do contracting with NASA or the DoD. We like to keep it varied in topic because we know some folks really just need the introductory stuff, like how to do a SAM registration, how to do market research. But we also know some folks really want to get into the nitty-gritty of what are the best tips and tricks for contracting with the state of California, with BART in the Bay Area. So definitely keep an eye out for our trainings and webinars. We do them throughout the year, but you can also check out our website, which you will get links to, because our website is a really robust resource of government contracting knowledge from anything to, we have a local contracting page where you can go ahead and view county level procurement sites, which can be a little tricky to find. But you can also look at certifications you may qualify for. We have a ton of certification resources on our website. So even if you aren't in our service area, you may not be able to take advantage of our counseling or our custom bid matching. You can absolutely check out our webinars and our website to get that information, to get that knowledge from us. But if you aren't in our service area, like I said, there is an APEX Accelerator near you. And when you get these slides, you'll be able to find it using that aptac-us.org link, and you can get connected with them and experience the same great services. So with that, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. And I believe we'll be opening up a poll as James reads this brief disclosure.
All right. Hi, everyone. Again, this is James Forrest. I love doing these presentations, and I'm looking forward to doing this. I always feel like folks get a lot out of it, and I get a lot out of it as well. Teaching is often the best way to learn, and I feel I get a little more out of it each time. So we have to read this disclosure in the beginning. This is basically letting you know that we think that everything we're putting here is accurate as of the time of recording. It's the best of our ability at this time. Some or all of the provisions mentioned herein could or may be changed by the current administration, whatever government we're talking about, with or without prior notice. And we are not always notified when something changes. So just keep that in mind. We're recording this in November of 2023. And we are putting the poll out here. We're just asking, what's your experience level with government contracting? It's always nice to get to know our audiences. And so we've got no experience, just starting, some experience, fairly experienced, and very experienced. Okay, and looks like we got a majority of folks respond. Let's have a last chance here, a couple seconds, getting some people swinging in at the last moment. Okay, let's go ahead and end this. We can share out the results. All right, so this is about the kind of spread that we are used to seeing in our intro webinars. It looks like almost half of you, no experience, a third just starting, and then a diminishing number of people from just some experience up to fairly experienced. So that's great. We put these webinars together specifically designed so that everyone will get something out of it. We will try to start on a very broad level and explain the acronyms and explain government contracting and from a very high level, but there should also be some wisdom and advice here that is helpful for even if you've been around the block. And just with any presentation you go to, I just always advise critical thinking skills. This is our take on it as procurement professionals, and there's always exceptions to every rule and everything we say. So we're kind of your Sherpas or your guides through this space, and we hope you get a lot out of it. So let's start off. Here's the agenda for today. Number one, what's government contracting? As I mentioned, high level. Number two, how to determine if selling to the government is right for you. I will make this point again. We are not salespeople. We're not here to tell you that you should do government contracting. There's of course money to be made, but it's certainly not for everybody. So we think of a part of our moral responsibility is to make sure that you're not going to get into a situation where you're spinning your wheels. So first and foremost, that's your responsibility to determine if selling the government is right for you, and we can help you figure that out as well. How to get started if you do decide to go down this path. And marketing to the government, this is really key. Marketing is, in our experience, what separates those who have success from those who do spin their wheels. Where to find bid opportunities, give you some resources there, and then steps for success. So let's jump right in with no further ado. This will be a lot of information in this webinar, and we're going to go through it fairly quickly. Just remember, you'll have the slides and the video recording within a week. So what is government contracting? So first you want to ask, what is a government? So government is a tax-funded entity. We all have kind of an idea of what a government is, but it's something that helps run a society or a certain section of society. When we say government, we often mean the federal government. You say the government, the man, but we're not just talking about the federal government. Yes, the federal government is the biggest buyer in the world, but there are 50 states and they are all independent governments. They run things on their own to a large degree. And that's not even getting into local governments. So we're talking about cities. There's tens of thousands of cities in the United States. There are, I think, 3,000 counties. Counties are all governments. School districts, hospitals, transportation authorities, publicly owned utilities, Native American tribes, those are all sovereign governments as well. So keep a broad open mind when you're thinking about government contracting. It's not just the federal government. And so there's a lot of different opportunity, and so it can be overwhelming to try to find where to start. So government contracting specifically, all right, so what does the government spend their money on? How to get involved with that? It used to be that the government spent a lot more of their money on W-2 employees. They would hire a government employee, and then they would do a service for that, whether that was from being doing management, expertise, or working in factories, for instance, in shipyards during World War II. Just in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, they had something like 10, 12,000 government employees who were building ships for the war effort. That's virtually unheard of today. You would contract out that sort of defense contracting to a large company, your Lockheed Martins of the world. So this is the overall general trend in government contracting. So a lot of things that used to be done in-house are now done in the private sector. So they're passing the responsibility for the goods and the services of a lot of what makes the federal and state and local governments run to the private sector. And that means large businesses, big corporations, but it also means a lot of small businesses if you play your cards right. And that's where we come in. So why do we have these images here? Well, they're not just some pretty images of different kinds of work. They're illustrative of some common and slightly less common opportunities in industries and government contracting. So the guy with the jackhammer, construction, I think we could all guess, is a huge, huge field within government contracting. Very needed industry. Think about all the roads that the government maintains. Caltrans in California, for instance, federal highways. Think about the bridges that they need to build and maintain. Think about all the government office buildings, facilities, defense installations. And these are all require initial construction, and they need maintenance and remodeling and updating. And this is called public works. Public works is a huge, huge sector in government contracting. Janitorial, again, all of these office buildings. There's every government agency has an office building, and there are thousands of them when you calculate everything all together. Thousands of different agencies, and each agency can have tons of locations. And so we're not just thinking of Washington, D.C., we're thinking of all across the entire country. They all need janitorial services. So if you have a janitorial business, there may be some opportunity for you if you've got a well-oiled machine. We've got firefighting services right there. That's kind of city firefighting, and often those are, but we're talking about mainly wildfire fighting, especially is contracted a lot out to small businesses in the private sector, and that's a big thing that we help with. Viper season for the Forest Service is coming up, January, February, March. So if you have heavy equipment, if you've got skidders and tractors and equipment like that, you can get involved with the Forest Service fighting wildfires. Office supplies for the same reason as janitorial, tons of offices. And so on the bottom row, we've got some things that are procured. They are purchased by the government, a little less commonly, but you can still do business with some of these. This is just both of these rows are just kind of a random sample of things. So for instance, we don't have IT up there, but IT is a huge deal. Moving services, if a government needs to move an office, that you might have some opportunity there. Some people might be surprised to find that you can sell dog treats and collars and chew toys and dog food and things like that. Well, think about the police forces have canine units, for instance. This beautiful photo here, the USDA buys food. So we've had some clients that had a lot of success selling boxes from their production farms. And last but not least, we've got this nice picture of goats. Who doesn't love animals? Believe it or not, the government does rent goats for grazing. And so if you've got an unwieldy property or park or something like that got noxious weeds or just simple vegetation management, goats are a cost-effective way to handle that rather than having a guy with a weed whacker out there for dozens of hours. So yes, this is just kind of our intro slide for what government contracting is, and now we'll dive in, really kind of flesh this out a bit more. So what are some of the common industries for government contracting? As I mentioned, public works includes architecture and engineering and construction. Professional services, what does that mean? It's a huge category. Professional services, all kinds of things, consulting and management, all kinds of expertise, scientific studies and things like that. So professional services is very broad. We mentioned office supplies and janitorial, IT. So if you do IT, software as a service, software support, hardware, selling laptops, components, algorithms, all kinds of things related to IT, giant category. Medical suppliers and technology, think of all the hospitals, all the VA clinics. Transportation and logistics, well, you got to move things in order to make things run. And the trucking is a big one, and managing logistics is a big one. Fire suppression services, as we mentioned, and of course, lastly, but certainly not the least, defense. And we all know that government spends a lot of money on defense, the federal government does. And so if you are in that field, there is certainly opportunity for you. And so there are some less common industries. And when we say less common, we mean you really have to think, if you're in one of these industries, if it's going to be worth your time trying to get into government contracting. There's exceptions to every rule, but if it's anything federally illegal, like cannabis, if you're actually cultivating and selling cannabis, very, very, very unlikely that you'll have any success in the government marketplace. Restaurants, now there are restaurants on, for instance, like on Navy bases or in airports and hospitals. There may be some opportunities to sell food and things like that. Some catering gigs certainly could be possible for events. But if you're just a brick and mortar and you're having some success, or maybe you're spinning your wheels and not having enough walk-ins, there are better ways to make money in the restaurant industry than trying to get into government contracting, unless you are really, really well positioned. Entertainment, again, think about this. The government is spending with taxpayer dollars. They have this fiduciary responsibility to do right by the taxpayers. So there's not a whole lot of money is spent on things like entertainment. Same thing for well-being and holistic health. Exceptions to this, but just keep it in mind. Clothing retailers. Now, there's a ton of uniforms. Think about all the prisons. Think about all the police officers. Think about in the army. Just all kinds of government employees. Anybody who has a uniform, that's certainly a huge opportunity for you. But if you're a retailer of clothing, if you're just selling clothing for just kind of general jeans and t-shirts and things like that, and nice jackets, may not be a easy entry into the market for you. And goes without saying, luxury items, you're not going to expect a lot of tax dollars spent on luxury items. But there are a ton of things procured, even in one government, even in one agency, even in one site or one location within one agency. For instance, this is the California CDCR's Pelican Bay State Prison. So this is the prison system in just one. So just a random sample. I'm just going to read some of these, armory and ammunition. We've got foods, jail beds, interpreters, laboratory services, electrical, courier, personal services, water treatment, vending machines, utilities. So really, you name it, it's like a small city. So what does it take to run a small city? Well, just about everything here. So Again, but you won't find cannabis, you won't find some luxury services and things like that. So just keep in mind, there's plenty of opportunity, but you have to sort of think critically and do some market research. Okay, so while we're on the speaking with broad strokes here, let's talk about let's talk about the terms subcontractor and prime contractor. You just want to enter into the chat here. Who has heard of the term sub or prime? And it's fine if you have not, or if you've heard about them and you're not really sure what they mean. We kind of like to hear that, because that means we're in the right place. And I'll go into explaining, but I love to see folks getting into the chat. It's like many of you have. So a typical structure for a large project, let's say it's a construction project, let's say it's for $100 million. Generally, they're going to find a large company that's going to be the prime contractor. And what we mean by prime meaning the first, is that they are the one that has the direct relationship with the government. They are the one that's going to be managing the contract, performing the duties in the most clear primary capacity. However, and that's for a lot of reasons, but a large company has the capacity to do things like that. They may have had a lot of experience government contracting, and they know the government knows that they'll be able to perform this job. However, especially in subcontracting, especially in public works, subcontracting is a huge deal. So subcontracting means that a prime contractor will subcontract out some of the work. So they'll find quite often small businesses, quite often businesses that are certified in different fields in order to perform certain elements of the task. A certain percentage of the work sometimes is mandated to go out to subcontractors, DBEs and SBs and things like that. This is really where you can come in and have a lot of opportunity, not just in construction, but in all kinds of fields. So the prime contractor has a direct relationship with the government. The subcontractor has a relationship with the prime contractor, which means that if you are trying to market yourself as a subcontractor, you are not reaching out to the government itself. You are reaching out to businesses who you think will be bidding on and winning projects like this. And a lot of times there's well-oiled machines for these large primes to get involved with. Other times it may be a matter of calling around and doing a teaming agreement with another small business. So it's not just large and small. Try to think creatively here. So, but we really recommend working on subcontracting if you're starting out in the field. And it's a great way to get your feet wet. And we have some other tips on that later as well. So as I mentioned in the intro, are you ready for doing business with the government? Not everyone is. We are certainly not here to push it on anyone. If you have doubts, then you really want to take those seriously, because a lot of folks, it will take you on average a year to year and a half before you win your first contract. And this is if you were working diligently on it on a daily or at least weekly basis and putting everything together and doing it right. So we really don't want to oversell it. We want you to work with us. We want you to have your best chance. And that means taking it seriously, that you have to be ready to go. So first of all, do you have an established business? In almost every field, except maybe wildfire suppression, you do need an established business, which means you got to have all your paperwork together with the Secretary of State. You have a DBA, have that filed. If you have a location, you got a location set up. You got your banking account, all of those things. Preferably website, but we'll talk about that in a minute. You should have a business plan, and you should have some room for government contracting in there. How does it fit in overall? Government contracting for 99% of you should not be 100% of your revenue. You shouldn't expect it to be that way. It's putting too much pressure on this market. Ideally, you'll have some financial stability, which is the next category here, from work in the private sector, that you have some capacity, that you have built your business already, and now you're ready for what I think of as level 2. Contracting is it's not like grants, where you might get a grant if you're in economic depression or you're struggling. Contracting is very competitive, and so you want to be on your best foot when you get into it. It's hard to pivot to contracting if other things are not working out for your business. So financial stability, you may not get paid for a contract for 45, 90 days after you complete the contract. So the government's not going to pay you up front. If you're hard on cash and you need to perform tens of thousands of dollars of work, think about where's that money going to come from? And will you even be hired in the first place? The past performance is a required field for so many government contractors. And I get clients that are frustrated about this all the time. And I feel your pain. It is frustrating. It's kind of like when you get out of college and every single job you apply for says, 5 years of experience mandatory. Well, that's really hard, but you can get experience in the private sector, and that will count as certain type of past performance once you get into the public sector. So a history of sales in the private sector is almost always a mandatory condition here for getting into business with government. And even better is having some work with the government as well. Some micro purchases, some local contracts, subcontracts, or something like that. Okay, market research. Cannot stress this enough. Marketing and market research are going to occupy about 80–85% of your time after the initial stage of registrations and certifications. Understanding your market is going to be key if you're going to have success. We can help you with that. We love doing that kind of work. And last but not least, it's 2023, y'all. Have a website. There's some cheap ways to make a website. Make sure it looks nice. Make sure all the links are live and active. If you're selling goods, have an e-commerce platform. If your services, it'd be nice to have a book link or something like that. So just work on that if you can. We can help you, give you some tips on how to get a government contracting ready website. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We're a little bit biased, but there's also, as Amanda said, no downside. Apply for us. We're free. We like to help. Friendly folks such as myself here will be happy to help you. But just do mind what she said about geographic areas and readiness and things like that. Identify your target agencies. So you really want to focus on some agencies, focus on building relationships and finding about who are the right stakeholders and the buyers and the contracting officers in this specific agency. Choose your NAICS codes. That is the North American Industry Classification System codes. Basically, these are codes. They're not specific to your business. They're specific to industries. So they're very pithy little codes, 6-digit codes that describe a certain kind of industry or sub-industry. And when you have a list of those, it tells the contracting officer what it is you sell. Same thing with UNSPSC codes. These are United Nations standard product and service codes. California uses these as well as a lot of countries. And I believe some other states as well. So find what codes are applicable to your business and write those down. Register and certify on Cal eProcure. That is California's procurement portal. Register on SAM.gov. SAM is the System for Award Management. I think they're doing a little Uncle Sam play on words there as well. Get a UEI number and a cage code. If you may be familiar with those, if you're just getting into contracting, help a ton of folks get through these processes, and they can certainly be a headache without our help. But I don't believe I've ever failed at getting someone through the whole process. So please talk to me if you're having some struggle with that. Talk to Amanda. Complete the dynamic small business search, otherwise known as the DSBS, otherwise known as the SBA portal. This will allow you to market your business for free to exactly the kind of customers that you're looking for, who are contracting officers and government officials. It's a public database. You can put in a capabilities narrative, some keywords, past performance, even link to your capability statement, which we're going to talk about here. Capability statement is a marketing document that is designed for the government sector. So it's basically a resume for your business in GovCon. So we're going to talk about that in a bit. So I won't go too much into it here, but it's mandatory. I mean, we think it's mandatory. It's a really crucial marketing document. So we have resources for you. And as we mentioned, make sure your website is government friendly. So we're going to go through all of these things. But first, let's talk about socioeconomic certification and size. So the way I like to lay this out is I think we could all agree, if you want to just put in the chat here, if you had a choice between doing business with a small mom and pop shop around the corner and buying something from them, or buying something from Target, if you had the same price point and the same level of convenience and everything like that, they were equally far from your home, would you prefer to do business with a small business or a business like Target or Amazon or Walmart? You just put it in the chat here. I'll kind of go along here. The government would prefer to do business with the small. However, there are benefits in terms of ease, in terms of price, and in terms of competency of management that the government sees with doing business with large businesses. So a ton of money does go towards large contractors. Looks like most folks here, everyone is saying you prefer to do business with a small business, and that's I share that sentiment along with the government. So just about every state and federal government and all kinds of local governments have certifications for small and local businesses. So they want to do business with small folks. They need to provide some sort of incentive for the contracting officers to actually do that, because it can be easier and it can be cheaper and smoother to work with a large business that already has this whole system set up and decades of past performance and the capacity to do billion-dollar projects and things like that. But small businesses, it's a cliche now, but it really is the lifeblood and the backbone of this country. So how do you make it a little easier for small businesses? Well, you ask them to jump through some hoops, which is the annoying part, but you just prove that you're a small business. Here's my tax returns. Here's my employee counts. Here's the basic information, my statement of information, articles of incorporation. I am indeed a small business. I'm in charge of this business. And so that's for size. Proving that you're a small business allows the contracting officer of the government to apply a preference and say, okay, 20%, 23, 25, whatever percentage of our business needs to go to small businesses. And we're going to do small business set aside. So big businesses can't compete. The same thing is true for socioeconomic certifications. And right here, I want to pause and back up. Some folks get confused when we talk about certifications. There are different kinds of certifications that are not relevant to what we're talking about here. You may have, a business license or a tax certificate. That's not what we're talking about. You may have an industry certification. So you could be a licensed timber operator, or you'd have a certified motor carrier permit. That's not what we're talking about here either. All kinds of industry certifications. We're talking about certifications specifically that incentivize the government to do work with you. And so it's not just size, it's also socioeconomic certifications. For instance, if you are a woman, and you are in control of your business, you own a majority of it, you might be eligible for the WOSB, or the Woman-Owned Small Business program, the certification, or the economically disadvantaged version of that, which has a certain threshold for how much money you can have and make. If you are a veteran, thank you for your service, you might be eligible for the VOSB, or the Service Disabled VOSB, Veteran-Owned Small Business Certification. These are all under the federal government's SBA field. The historically underutilized business zone, the hub zone, this is the one certification on the federal level that is not related to the identity of the owner, but rather the location of the principal office, and then a certain percentage of employees. And then we have the 8A Business Development Program. This one's a little bit different as well. It's not just a certification that you get and then you have to maintain every year, every 2 years. It's a whole 9-year business development program. You're assigned a mentor and all kinds of things. So that one's certainly quite in-depth. If you are just starting out, you're not eligible for that one. And then the DBE, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise certification, is a bit of a gray area. The federal government mandates that every state runs their own DBE program if they are getting any FHWA, that's Highway Administration money, from the federal government that goes and flows into the state highway programs. So if you're in construction, highway construction, maintenance, surveying, things like that, DBE may be worth it for you. It's certainly on the advanced side of certifications. State of California, unlike the federal government, only has 2 real certifications. They got the small business, which we already discussed, and they have the disabled veteran business enterprise certification, which, as you might see, is just for veterans if you're disabled in combat. It's actually illegal for California at this time to have to discriminate based on race or gender, or even they call it discrimination, but even provide a preference for women or LGBTQ or minority-owned businesses. Okay. One I didn't mention here is a small disadvantaged business. A lot of folks ask me about this, so I'll just talk real quickly. SDB, you get it through your SAM registration if you answer yes on a certain question that asks, are you a small disadvantaged business? Qualifications for this are if you are a minority-owned firm. So that is the principal minority-owned certification in this sector. All right, so we are talking about state and federal, but I really want to pivot here to talk and to remind you that local contracting often gets swept under the rug. If you're watching national webinars and things like that, you'll see a lot of folks just referring to federal. Local contracting is crucial. As I mentioned, there's tens of thousands of cities in this country. Those are all governments. Every single one of them is a government. There are, I believe, 3,000 counties in the country, and we've got 57 of them in California alone. And this is not including the school districts, transportation agencies, and all of the tribal governments as well in this country. And so these governments, if you add them all up together, they spend something between $2.5 and $3 trillion per year in the private sector. That's more than the federal government. So yes, the federal government is the biggest buyer in the world. California is the 5th largest economy in the world. However, more money is actually being spent on the local level. And so why don't we hear more about this? Well, whereas there is the federal government, even if they have 100 agencies, more than that, there are tons of local agencies, and they're all disconnected. So it's very dispersed. Every system is a little bit different from each county and city and transportation district. And so finding where to find those opportunities can really be a challenge. That's something we can help with in a variety of ways. But starting on local has a number of benefits. For one thing, you may be right down the road from them. So they may have an explicit preference or an implicit preference for working with the local moms and pops, like a lot of us have here. It helps you gain past performance. So the dollar amounts are quite often smaller in local than on federal contract, which means if you're starting out in government contracting, working with a local agency might be an easier jump for you, an easier threshold to get into. So it's a great way of building capacity. It's a great way of getting experience managing government contracts. So that's something that you should be thinking about and not discounting local here. As I mentioned, they often use their own procurement systems, which frankly can be frustrating. A lot of them seem to want to upsell you into paying in order to view bids. Typically, you do not have to pay for the premium version, let's say, of Periscope or BidSync in order to get access to a county or a city's bid list. However, it will often seem that you do. So just keep in mind, just in general in government contracting, there's really nothing that you have to pay for. You don't have to pay for a SAM registration. You maybe get a lot of spam that says, pay us $500, pay us $3,000 to do your SAM registration, to update your DSBS. Don't fall for these scams. We're a free service. We can help you navigate all of this. And really, no certification costs money. You can pay for these things, but we don't recommend it. Okay, local business preferences. Some counties and cities have local business preferences or small business preferences. San Francisco's got one, the LBE. Alameda has the SLEB, small local emerging businesses. So you can get some nice little certifications that can kind of help get you into a little less competition when bidding for these big out-of-state firms and things like that. We've done the work putting together a list of local agencies. You can find this on our website, so please take a look at that. It should link to all the different procurement portals in our service area. Okay, I mentioned briefly in the beginning about capability statement and promised we would dive more into it. We will go pretty quickly here because as Amanda mentioned at the start, we do have a whole hour webinar on how to put together a capability statement. And that's really the deep dive. Please go look that up after this. If you haven't seen it, it's on our website, and we will link here as well. Well, I don't know if we're linking the slides here, but it's on our website. A capability statement is a resume for your business. It should be, for most of you, one page, like most resumes, unless you're in the academics side of things. You want to create multiple versions of it to target different agencies, even different contacts within an agency. You're thinking critically about how to get through to the stakeholders that are going to be in charge of deciding whether they want to take advantage of your services and goods or not. So the capability statement is all about communicating value. And how you communicate value to a government contracting officer, a government employee, might be very different than the way you communicate value to another company, a private company, and certainly is going to be different than the way you communicate value to your private clients in the private sector. So it's a different way of thinking in government contracting in general. But once you get marketing and government contracting, a lot of overlaps with the way you do private marketing, and a lot is different. So we do have an instructional page on this. That'll link to the webinar, and we have a template, and we've got an instruction guide. Take a look at these. These are really helpful if you're starting out. So just real briefly, things you want to include in the capability statement on this one page. It's a lot to fit, but intro paragraph, bulletized list of core competencies, some differentiators, key clients that you have or have worked with, past performance. So what kind of experience do you have in this sector? Codes and certifications like NAICS and all the SBA certifications. Any contact information, of course, a link to your website and some photos to make it nice. So here's the links to the free template and the instruction guide. And there's a little sample of what our version looks like. You can use this directly and just fill it in, or you can go ahead and use it as an inspiration. And if you have any graphic design skills or want to hire a graphic designer, you can use Canva or Illustrator or whatever have you. All right, I know that was very quick, but there's more information out there. A lot of folks do not think about this. This comes from left field for a lot of clients, but having a government contracting ready website, what does that mean? Well, first of all, that it's updated and relevant. I think that goes without saying. For better or for worse, you do have a lot of responsibility in this day and age of having a good website. It's kind of expected when folks Google your name that they'll come up with something that looks good and is clear about what you do. The nice tip that we have that helps make it a contracting ready website is add a section on your website that's meant for the government. Or it's meant for prime contractors or teaming partners that are going and looking, okay, well, how do we get involved with government contracting with this person? They click on it and they have all kinds of information that might link to your capability statement as a PDF, for instance, get a link for downloading. It might have a lot of information that is also on that capability statement, so they can just see at a glance. What are your registrations, your certifications, your CAGE code, NAICS code, your UNSPSC codes, things like that. Any of most recent projects, pretty much the same thing that you would put on your capability statement, but maybe a slightly different layout. And it's definitely easy to navigate. These are not endorsements of these companies. We're not paid by them, and we haven't worked with them. But just a couple examples through some searching that we've done as an organization, find nice little examples of government contracting tabs, government contracting pages. And so the first one here, you can see Admiral's experience. They've got the second tab here, government contracts. They do consulting, looks like, and they've got some experience on what they do, some listing their on experience. The description here, they've got some previous contracts, they've got a company overview. And if you scroll down, you get a link to the capability statement. So that's very nice, looks great, looks attractive to someone who might be interested in doing business with them in the government sector. Kenzie Plus, they have these links here. You know, typically in a lot of situations, you're not supposed to use icons or logos of the government, but if you make it clear that it's from past performance or key clients, then you can. You know, they look the other way for these things. So I've highlighted some of these here. They've got the Army Corps of Engineers, USDA, Forest Service, NOAA, and then they've also mentioned on the right here that they are a GSA contractor holder. We're not going to get into that. What that means is that it's really easy for them to do business with you. So if you're on a GSA schedule, certainly put that on your website. You got no excuse not to. And then NAICS code, as you might expect, this is definitely something you want to include. One note here, they've included, quite helpfully, all the descriptions. People are not robots, and these are humans reviewing your website. There's humans behind everything, really. They do not have all of the NAICS codes in the world memorized. There's a ton of them, so please put your descriptions there as well. It'll make it easy for them. Okay, we are going at a fast pace. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is drinking information from a fire hose, but you'll have these slides to review. I want to talk about marketing to government, and this is an element of government contracting that is often underestimated, and it's very important to discuss. Marketing is going to sell. Is going to sell your business. It's going to distinguish you from those who fail. So really getting into marketing, understanding how marketing works for the public sector is really important. You need a marketing plan. You need to decide who to target. Do you want to work with primes? Do you want to work as a prime for government contracts? You want to think about networking. Not everyone likes networking, but like it or not, you're the one that decided to start a business. So you need to network with government agencies, government employees, try to find out who the right people are. Prime contractors, so it could be big businesses or other businesses that are going after government contracts. And other small businesses. Don't get caught in the mindset of thinking that everyone who's not you is a competitor. Other small businesses could join in teaming agreements with you. Team up, double your capacity, fill in each other's weak points, and go after contracts together. That's a wonderful thing, and the government loves when you do that. Establish relationships. As I mentioned, this can seem like a really bureaucratic and robotic landscape. It is a bureaucratic landscape. There's a lot of red tape. That's what we're here to do to help with. Behind all of this is human beings making decisions. And so do you think it helps if you have a relationship, if you've talked on the phone, if you've connected on LinkedIn with somebody who's involved in the procurement process? Absolutely it does. We're humans. So focus on who are the people that you need to build relationships with. On that note, quite relevantly, going to events, going to in-person things, or even online networking things, expos, matchmakers, industry days, conferences. This is a great way to get to know folks who could help you in your contracting journey. Participate in trainings. Always be thinking like a student. So you're never going to graduate from the Academy of Government Contracting. There's always more you can learn. You're doing a great job of coming to our webinar today. We've got a ton more trainings, and we'll put also the conferences and anything we hear about, and other trainings from other organizations as well that we think are going to be helpful. We'll put those on our website, but you will also want to be on top of this, Googling and using your search engine to find events and trainings in your area, or online, of course. Social media, don't overlook this, especially LinkedIn, not so much TikTok, but LinkedIn is going to be a great opportunity to connect with contracting officers. Small business representatives. There are people whose entire jobs it is to connect with you. So keep that in mind. Look up your small business representatives on different local, state, and federal levels. And as I mentioned before, the Dynamic Small Business Search is a free marketing tool that gets created when you do your SAM registration. Where to find good opportunities? Most folks are not going to have success just randomly trolling the internet for opportunities, but that is a way that it does happen. So we got a link to our local agency websites, prime contractor websites, Cali Procure for California. You'll see under events, SAM has contracting opportunities, anything over $25,000 listed there. Acquisition.gov will tell you. Many agencies publish procurement forecasts where they say, all right, we expect in this quarter to be issuing solicitations for this kind of thing. So that's really helpful as well. And then of course there's not of course, but there's associations like builders exchanges and things like that also host opportunities that they hear of. So it may be helpful for you to get involved with those. And we also have a bid match service that Amanda mentioned. I won't get into that now. So in summary, here are your 10 steps for success. A little quick pitch. On December 5th, we're going to dive much deeper into these. So if you liked what you heard today and you want to hear more about this, please come back Tuesday morning, December 5th. And we're going to really get into the steps for success, and using this as sort of as an introduction for that webinar. So please join. I'll be presenting that. And so first, determine if you're ready for government contracting. Not everyone is, and that's fine. We had a lot of clients who are, and some clients who are not, and we'll have that conversation together. Apply for our services. So that's we've been over that before. Getting started checklist. So that's part of making sure that you're ready to go. Get certified if you're eligible for any certifications. Hopefully you're eligible for at least for the small business, unless you're a large business. Create your capability statement. We can work together drafting that. I love getting out my teacher's red pen and going over things, comments and highlights and things like that. Update your website, as we mentioned, and of course, network, build relationships, market your business. I cannot stress that enough. Most of your time spent in government contracting will be about this. Finding opportunities, whether that's through networking, you've heard it, or you find it online in different venues, and then bid and keep bidding and be persistent, and you probably will fail. You probably will fail in the beginning. It may take you months, it may take you over a year, but you will eventually have success if you've done your homework and you position yourself well and you're persistent, and then eventually you'll be winning contracts. So all of this is because we want to see you succeed. We certainly don't do this for the money. We're in the nonprofit industry after all. So we really want to help you succeed. That's a huge part of what makes us wake up and come to our jobs in the morning. So please get connected with us. And we are looking forward to working with you. And I'll hand things back over to Amanda here, and then we'll have a short Q&A.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, James. That was a great presentation as always. And before we get into the Q&A, I want to let you guys know about a few upcoming events we have. So next Tuesday, we are joining the Norcal Veterans Business Outreach Center, Norcal VBOC. for a federal and state small business certifications for veterans webinar. That's going to be a fantastic one, going over not only the veteran-specific certifications, but some other certifications like HubZone that you may qualify for as well. And then, as James mentioned too, your path to government contracting success, a very, very needed successor to this introductory webinar, is going to be happening on Tuesday, December 5th at 10 a.m. I'm super excited because it's going to go so much more in depth to essentially all of the items we mentioned here today. So definitely one, if you're interested in pursuing government contracting, I cannot recommend registering for this event enough. And then in December as well, on the 7th, we will be joined by a representative from BART, the Bay Area Transit Authority. I believe it stands for Bay Area Rapid Transit. Could be wrong on that one, but they'll be joining us to give you the insider tips and tricks about how to successfully do business with BART, including some of their equity programs that they have within their department that you may be able to take advantage of. Oh, thank you, Adrian. I'm so glad I got BART right. And with that, we'll go ahead and go into our questions.
And once again, Matt, do you mind if I just kind of power through these, because we don't have a lot of time here? I'm going to editorialize a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, thanks. Robin here is asking, how do you find a prime contractor? So I've gone into this a little bit today, but it is hard. You know, I think finding primes is a difficult thing, and when you're starting out as a subcontractor, there is no official list of all the primes, but there's a couple different ways. The first thing, and the best way to do this is to do your market research, just to sort of find who are the companies that are winning the kinds of awards that you would like to subcontract for. And so you can use USA Spending, you can use the Federal Procurement Data System, FPDS, for the federal government. On California's website, you have past awarded contracts in the quick links tab on caleprocure.gov. And state local entities will often publish their past performance, and we can also help with that market research. So basically, you're looking to the past and seeing, all right, who has already been awarded these types of large contracts or whatever have you, and then you're going to reach out to them, preferably well in advance of a contract coming out, and try to build a relationship with them. There are also platforms such as Subnet, managed by the SBA, the federal side, that you can post ads and find ads. It's not used a ton. Same kind of thing with the California government on each event, which they call bid notifications. You can post vendor ads for subs and primes. It's not used a ton, but yeah, absolutely. Okay, Ola's asking, can a small business be a prime contractor? Absolutely. That is not going to be a problem at all. We broke it down for typical structure for a large project, just because we wanted to make it clear that how common subcontracting is on large projects. But you can do prime, you can be a prime as a small business for sure. Absolutely. So how do you meet government agencies? Luz Padilla is asking this. That's a very good and general question that we definitely want to spend a lot of time on. And this is the aspect of marketing and networking. And so we went over a little bit, but yeah, it's an intimidating topic. I would recommend taking, there's some great webinars on Gavology. If you apply for our services, you'll have those on marketing. We've got some webinars on marketing as well, where we go all deep into it. A lot of it's going to be old school networking. So getting on the phone, going to industry days, conferences, you know, things like the Navy has the Navy Gold Coast every summer down at San Diego event. And you may know more about your own industry conferences than we would. So go there, go to kind of just keep your ears out. As I mentioned on our website, we will put any events that we hear about on there, but it's not going to be everything. So don't forget about LinkedIn in this day and age. Using social media, you can just about, I think heard from a training that 70 or 80% of contracting officers from the federal government are on LinkedIn now. You can reach out to folks. Be persistent. If you call and you get a receptionist who's kind of stonewalling you, see what you can do. Be persistent, send emails, try to dig up information on contacts, and then build relationships with them. And be ready. Have your capability statement ready. Have your power pitch ready. All of that. So great question, Luce. Absolutely. Is there a minimum revenue requirement to win contracts? Jayashri is asking that. That is a great question, and that's the kind of question we get a lot. There is, you can't point to one template for really anything in government contracting. It makes it difficult to do our jobs because we can't just say one thing that applies to tribal governments, that applies to local, city, county, transportation, state, federal. There are very few rules that go all the way across everything. So in putting this presentation together, we've tried to be as general as possible while also being accurate. But there is no one minimum revenue requirement. There's not for registering in sound.gov, not for registering in Cal eProcure, not for most certifications. Exception to that might be for the 8A program. You need to be in business at least 2 years and be really chugging along with your business. So they don't give it needs to be this many dollars per year, but they want you to have some serious revenue and be chugging along. And if you do get a GSA schedule kind of contract, which is like selling your goods and services on Amazon for the government, then you will be required to make $25,000 a year in sales. But generally, it is a subjective matter. You want to see if you're ready to do business with the government, which means, do you feel confident that if you go invest and sink all this time doing government contracting prep work, getting all these registrations and certifications, it's nothing to bat your eye at. It will take some time. So if you're going to do that, do you have a functional business model that is going to be able to go and make money off of this process? So that's kind of the question you want to ask yourself. Getting WSB certified and all those things, they're not going to require a certain amount of revenue in most cases. But you do want to have some revenue. There are very few exceptions to that. Again, if you're trying to get on Viper, that might be an exception. If you've got Masticator and you can help make fire lines for wildfires, you can be a sole proprietor. You can just have the equipment and be ready to go. Still a lot of red tape, but yeah, that's my answer for that. Hopefully that's helpful. Okay, I'm going to skip that question because it's a little bit detailed there. But thank you for your question. If you have any questions left over, please email us. I am available to answer questions after the webinar. So yeah, I don't see any other questions in the Q&A right now. I'll hand things back over to Amanda. And thanks for letting me charge through. I kind of like doing that too.
Of course, yeah. And with that, thank you all so much for joining us. And James, thank you so much for being here this morning. It's always a great presentation.
Thanks, Amanda.
And before you all head off to tackle the rest of the day, when you exit this webinar, you'll be redirected to our feedback survey. And we'd highly recommend and actually greatly appreciate you taking a couple minutes to answer the couple questions that we have. This feedback survey is very valuable to us because, like I said in the beginning, we do this for you. So if we can be doing it better for you, or if we're hitting the mark and doing it perfectly for you, we would love to know either way. That way, if there are improvements we can make, whether that be presentation-wise, topic-wise, we will know. And if we're doing fantastic, we always love to hear that. So I hope everybody here has a fantastic Thursday, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks for everything, and thanks everyone else for coming.
Of course. Have a great one.